The next participant, he was online already, and yes, you are here, John Moravec. Hello, you are talking with us from the United States of America, so it's very early in the morning, and thank you so much for agreeing to join us at this time of the day. This is the author of the project Nomad Society, and the topic, the theme of the report sounds like that: Nomad Society, human potential development in a jobless future. That's a dark side. So please, if you want to say something about yourself, about your work and everything else, we are listening to you. Thank you very much for joining.
Так, доброе утро из Миннесоты. So a little bit about me. I am a futurist. I work on the future of work, but also in education. I used to look really deep down the road to see where we're going in the workforce, but now the future, the strange future, is getting a lot closer to us, and it's now work with organizations to plot pathways on what we could do as individuals, but also as organizations to meet these future needs. So I do a lot of work with governments and a lot of work with universities and a lot of work with schools to plan today to meet the human potential needs of the future. What I'm going to talk about during this presentation is really centered around emerging tension between the individual and the organization. I think that for those of us studying management, can we manage individuals? Can we manage knowledge? Can we manage talent? And unfortunately, this is really a 1-hour presentation, which I'm going to condense into about 15 minutes. So I think that for the gaps, we'll cover over in question and answer, okay? So I found this quote to be a bit provocative. It's in Dutch. So let me read it for you. It says, robots rapidly becoming more accessible, more reliable, and cheaper. They're cheap, quick, they never get sick, and they work 24 hours a day. Now, the really interesting thing about this is that this is a quote from the social affairs minister in the Netherlands, which means that there's an actual government that's concerned about robots taking away our jobs. I mean, when do you hear that? Governments always say, it's just fine, we're in control, everything's going to be happy. This is very different. This is another signal that we perhaps need to get ready for a jobless future. So how individuals cope with this? And again, I work on the future of education, and I also wrote Manifesto 15, which is at manifesto15.org, and it's also available in Russian as well. So we ask about, what about the work of the future? Or what about the manager of the future? Or the university professor, the office assistant? What about a corporate learning officer? Or the nomadic kid that runs around Asia? What's his future? You know, will these jobs even exist? And it came to the realization that the future belongs to nerds, geeks, makers, dreamers, and nomads. And so, not while everybody will or should become an entrepreneur, those who do not develop entrepreneur type skills are at a great disadvantage. And so our universities and our schools should focus on the development of entrepreneurs, who are individuals that leverage their specialized knowledge to dream, create, make, explore, learn, or promote entrepreneurial, cultural, or social endeavors. And they take risks as much as enjoying the process as the final outcome, without fearing the potential failures or the mistakes that the journey includes, right? So we're saying that to meet these future needs is like, maybe not all of us should become entrepreneurs, but if you do not have those skills, we're at a great disadvantage, because these skills help us navigate through different organizations and also navigate through our lives a bit. So my work, I've been piecing together clues that we have about the future and how we're getting there and what we might do today to improve our chances of success. And we do not know what the future brings with certainty, but we can assemble bits and pieces here and there to help us frame a fuller picture of what may be. And so we wrote a lot of this into the book Nomad Society, which can buy online, or you can also download for free. Or if you want to translate to Russian, I'm happy to work with the team to make that happen. And you guys can have the book, right? So we wrote about these ideas in Nomad Society and also expanded them to include new approaches to work as well. And we're not going to have much time to talk about, but I just wanted to bring it up to you because Nomad Society is a free book, but is in English. And then when the education side, we wrote a book in Spanish called Aprendizaje Invisible, Invisible Learning. This was a book I wrote with Dr. Cristóbal Cobo on futures-oriented approaches to education. And we really argued that we need to attend to the creation of an expanded ecology of options and also focus on controlling a whole lot less and attending to knowledge a whole lot more. So I heard the last talk about digital nomads, but I want to talk about nomads, which are knowledge workers that are creative, imaginative, and innovative people that can work almost anybody, anytime, and anywhere. So I like to spell this KNOWMAD because it's a very specific set of knowledge workers. Industrial society is giving away to knowledge and innovation work. And whereas industrialization require people to settle in one place or perform a very specific role or function, the jobs that are associated with information and knowledge workers have become really less specific regarding time and space. Moreover, technologies allow these new paradigm to workers to work within a broader options, including real, virtual, or blended space options. But nomads go a little bit beyond just space because they instantly reconfigure or recontextualize their work environments and create even greater mobility options. Even if we're just talking about moving within companies. So nomads are context workers. They contextually apply what they know to solve new problems in different situations, perhaps across different organizations, or even across different fields altogether. Context workers are always focused on adding value to the jobs that they work or engage in. If they cannot, it's time to move on. I think we've all been in meetings where we look around the table, we ask the question, would the conversation be any different if I wasn't here? Because if the answer is no, you probably gotta get out, because if you're not adding value to the conversation, nobody wants you there. And that's just a sad reality, and it's becoming even more sadder these days. So it's a cute little chart. I hope you can read it on your screens. Nomads can be anybody at any age. They leverage their personal knowledge to solve problems. They contextually apply what they know. They're motivated to collaborate. They use new technologies purposively, not because we think that we need to have the latest toys and stuff, but because we've got actual specific uses for them. They share what they know. They learn, unlearn, and adopt new ideas as necessary. They thrive in non-hierarchical organizations. They learn continuously. And most importantly, they're not afraid of failure, because failing is one of the best ways that we learn. So why is this important? By year 2020, 45% of the Western workforce will be nomadic. So I think that for those of us having this conversation, it's going to be most of us. And 45% is a huge percentage when you consider that we still have traditional forms of work in factories, farms, offices, schools, universities, governments, etc. This 45% is pretty big. Here's another way of looking at it. This is the growth of nomadic work in the United States. And in 1989, only 6% of the population in the United States was self-employed, contingent, or some sort of contract worker. Today, that number is closer to like maybe 36%. But again, as we approach 2015, that number is going to be, 2020, we project that number to be 45% of the workforce. So I'm having a hard time with numbers this morning. I just woke up. We say nomads stand out, and so should you. And this is the real challenge for us in our schools and our universities, for human resource departments and governments. We need to develop workers that stand out in creativity and innovation, not workers that mindlessly memorize ideas or tasks or repeating old ideas. Nomads have to build the future, and it's our challenge to build skills into people for people that can build the future. We all want to be different, just like everybody else we want to be. And I think that this is a key characteristic of nomads, is that we can't educate ourselves to be the same or have the same skills, the same talents. We have to really express ourselves as individuals and develop ourselves as individuals. And for those of us that are really worried about management, this is a very big deal. So let's get into that a little bit. What about organizations? So think about this question for a moment. How do we respond as organizations? I'm going to share a framework that I'm still developing. I wrote a paper on this that contextualizes for librarians, which I'm happy to share with you. But working on a framework, we're moving from type 1 to type 3 innovations. To be real quick, type 1 innovations are interventions, vectors, or quick hacks. They're easy to sell, they're easy to implement, they're easy to measure. Type 2s are attitudes, beliefs, or sexy ideas. They're easy to sell, hard to implement, even harder to measure. And type 3 are systems-based, core transformative things, so kind of like revolutions. And they're hard to sell, they're really hard to implement, and really hard to measure because, let's face it, nobody really wants a revolution, right? So let me talk about some of how this looks in, like, say, in a school, because I think we've seen across cultures, I think schools are very similar. So there's some type 1 innovations, let's help kids learn, laptops, iPads, right? Just give kids computers. Will that change education? No, but it looks kind of cool. Or if the kids aren't learning, let's just test them more. No, or let's have a longer school year. No, it doesn't really change anything. And unfortunately, also, most educational technology startups are type 1 innovations because they're really focused on tweaking one little thing with the promise that they'll transform the world. But again, nothing really happens. Type 2 innovations include design thinking, edupunk, professional learning, communities, and creativity. Now, who's to say that creativity is a bad thing, right? Who's against creativity? Nobody. But the reality is that there's a real hard implementation question that makes a type 2 innovation with a low implementability. Type 3 innovations include invisible learning, democratic education, critical pedagogy, unschooling, or co-working together with co-learning. And these are really revolutionary ideas. And nobody really wants a revolution, but they have the largest potential to transform what we do. So take a moment. Think of types 1 and 3 innovations that exist in our corporations and universities today, or even education in general, right? And this might be a good conversation to look back on the question and answers in just a minute here. But I think my main point here is that we really need to develop ourselves into value networks that take on type 3 innovation goals and find ways to integrate modes 1 or type 1s and type 2s that integrate into a type 3 so that there is more of a purposive direction of where we're going as we build and stack innovations together. So Bernal Lee did a lot of work maybe 20 years ago, 15 or 20 years ago, mapping out organizations function as value networks. And when we do that, they no longer appear as orderly top-down operations with clear lines of relationships, but they really appear as complex strings of spaghetti, really, with multifaceted connections floating between among various levels and spans of an organization. In such a configuration, certain individuals and departments emerge as larger players, the meatballs, right? And they have greater connections at various levels of institution, and some meatballs are larger than others. But think about creating nomadic hubs, right? Or nomadic managers who can become super connectors, become the knowledge brokers, and they become the facilitators of the type 3 innovations that perhaps really need within organizations. Perhaps as appearing as a large meatball on a map of the organization's spaghetti-like mesh network, the added value is created for its users and stakeholders by brokering new opportunities for knowledge development and innovative actions. So I guess the question is, in a rapidly changing world where information is literally at the tips of our fingers and an institution's ability to react to knowledge really drives its potential for success, we should really ask ourselves, does the future need managers, or does it really need meatballs? And does the future really need these sort of workers? So my take that the bottom line is that the 1.0 industrial type paradigms won't help you build your 3.0 nomadic lives. And we need to develop the meatballs in the organizations to help us design our own tattoos or design our own work, design our own lives. We have to become different, just like everybody else we want to be like. And to really help, to really unleash our entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship within organizations. So I kind of reached the end of my 15 minutes, I think. So I just want to close off by saying that some people say that we need an innovation. Some people say that we need a revolution. We say that we need both, and we say that we need to innovate, innovutia. And this is really our noble quest, you know, to innovate not only with our ideas, but with the proposive actions of what we've learned in our own efforts and throughout the world. I think that's a bit bold, but I think that it puts, you know, a lot of responsibility on all of us to help make this happen and work towards a bigger picture. So thank you. I'm not sure if that made any sense to try and condense a lot to 15 minutes.
Thank you very much. You are the only one probably who tried to do that. Thank you for that. Thank you for your response, of course. It was very live and it was very powerful. And my question, well, first, maybe not my question. Does anybody else have a question right now? Do you understand Russian? You do, right?
You know, I speak Slovak, so I understand a lot of it, but better if you do in English.
So my question is, so you teach now, right? You work as a professor. You're a professional teacher, if I can say so, right?
Right. So I am a researcher, yes.
Just researcher, or you deal with students? Because I wanted to ask you how, for the last, I don't know, 5 years or maybe 7 years, how has your experience of teaching, your teaching experience has changed? How has it changed in terms of this changing environment, digitalization and everything else, and the topic we're discussing today, digital nomadism?
Right. Well, we have two directions. We have the future of work, which I think that within the last 5 years is becoming very clear for us where that direction is going. Then we've got policies, educational policy worldwide, mostly worldwide, throughout most governments that do not match this at all. Rather, they're going the opposite direction. So within the primary and secondary schools, we see more testing, more control, more rigorous formation of student knowledge and skills, rather than opening it up and saying, hey, what do you want to do? What are you passionate about? What can you create? And so we're seeing a whole lot less. Now these students come into universities. I noticed a dramatic change in the United States since we implemented the No Child Left Behind policy, which is very focused on regimented top-down control, where we have students that come into universities saying, okay, tell me what to do. And the challenge for us is that this is a time where you're supposed to say, so what do you want to create? Where do you want to go? And so we're seeing a tremendous mismatch. At the same time, though, there's some people that are figuring out that, hey, there are other ways of learning. There are other ways of doing things. And so we're seeing many alternative programs emerge around the world. We have the Nomads Business School in Amsterdam, for example. There's Chaos Pilots. There's the Outliers School in Latin America. Shibuya University Network in Tokyo. E180 learning teaching networks in Canada. And these are really fancy examples, but they really seem to cater towards a particular social class that has the resources where they can take the risk to make these happen. So the question is, for everybody, are we going to be left behind, or are we going to find other ways to make this happen? And this is, I think, a critical question.
So they also go kind of opposite ways. So you have the same probably problems as we do here. Some time ago we had a round table with potential employers. That was a meeting with the students, and the employers were saying that, come on people, you don't have to know everything, but you have to know how to learn, you have to know how to find information, you have to develop yourself further, you don't have to stop. And do you probably have the same like lack of motivation, of self-development? Your term nomad kind of has a double meaning, like nomad from nomad and knowledge, and nomad, like crazy person who really can create, and that's probably cream de la cream of all the society. Probably there will be just few people like that, and the rest will be meatballs.
Yeah. Well, the meatballs are, I think that for the nomadic workers within an organization, I think that's really critical. You brought the question of motivation, which I think is interesting. You know, every kid is motivated. I think one of the challenges is that we destroy their motivation. We beat it out of them. We tell them that, you know, there's only one path. I'm going to tell you what the path is. Well, you're not good enough to do something. You're not good enough to do this. And so we really destroy slowly and deliberately over time kids' motivations and passions for learning. The reality is that in a nomad society, things are changing so fast that we need to continuously learn, unlearn, and reimagine everything if we want to survive. Otherwise, we're going to have some severe problems. We're going to have people that just can't take on new work or fit in or create the work of their dreams.
So probably at the end we just have to produce more robots, a lot of robots, and just relax and entertain and travel. It's just, it's not even a rhetorical question, it's a silly joke. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we don't have more time for the discussion, and we hope to continue it on the website of the conference. We hope to get the full text of your report, of your presentation, so we can post it on there. And by the way, you were talking about your book, and that was a very interesting idea, actually, because we could talk about it also, about the translation into Russian. So let's stay in touch for that too, for that purpose too.
Yeah, if you guys want to translate in Russian, you're free to use it. It's a Creative Commons book, and so you're free to translate it. If you want to make money off of it, you can make money off of it.
Really? Thank you.
So go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It was wonderful. Thank you for finding time and for joining us today for your contribution. Bye.